This spot right here you saw that was kind of faded out. I cleared the car a long time back, and then I let that cure up because I had problems with fish eyes, which I still have over here. You probably can't see it because it's white. So I let that cure. I re-cleared the entire car, but I must have gone too thin right here. I must have wet sanded too far. Didn't go through the base coat, which is good. I had some drip marks right here and drip marks down here. So this section right here, I've already wiped it down with a wax and degrease remover. I've given it a final wipe solvent, and we're gonna start sanding and fixing these two spots, and then we're gonna scuff the rest of the clear. Now, right after I wet sanded and I saw that I had a bit of a faded spot, I did go ahead and polish this up and see if I could fix it. I couldn't, so I started sanding it more and just realized that I had a problem. So this area has polish. That's important to give this much of a cleaning as possible, so when we go ahead and sand this, we're not pushing that polish into the clear further, which would affect our clear coat when we go ahead and repair that. You notice that I removed the cap cover. I'm gonna use this piece to test out all the work that I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna sand this off, I'm gonna clear it, and I'm gonna throw on that solvent blend, which is gonna just blend in that clear coat that's existing and the new clear coat that I'm gonna be applying. I wanna test it on this piece because if I screw this up, I won't feel as bad as screwing this up, because if I go too heavy on that solvent blend, it could go into the base coat, and then this will just totally just droop and ruin the entire paint job. These are the products I'm going to be using. I have some shop towels. I have a plastic drop sheet, which is just going to go over the entire car to protect over overspray. My final wipe solvent, 2K clear, blend away solvent, and 2 scuffing pads. Probably going to use this black one here because it does a good job scuffing clear coat. With those 2 high spots on the drips, I'm going to have to sand those down a little further to level them off with the rest of the panel, and then we'll go ahead and scuff the rest of the panel. Now I have a block right here, which I'm going to start off with, and some 1500 grit sandpaper, which I've soaked in some water and soap. I don't know how long it's going to take to level that off. It might take a while, but I'd rather be cautious with this. If I have to, I'll drop it down to 1000 and see if it goes a little faster, but I think the 1500 with some time will level that off. With the sanding and everything done for there on those high spots on the drip marks, I'm going to tape off my workspace and I'm going to start scuffing everything. So this was hard to see in the broad daylight because of the white paint, so I let it kind of go dark outside. And you can notice the rest of this area right here is really faded out and basically like a matte color, our high gloss on the left. I'm going to take the tape off, start prepping a little further over. I'm going to 1000 grit this area right here. Everything is looking good. Those 2 run marks right there, this run mark here, are gone. Just going to clean this down thoroughly and start working over here on the left. And then I'll start taping off everything on the car and putting on that drop sheet, and this will be ready for some clear. Now there's going to be lots of different ways to do this. I'm doing this with an aerosol can and not my spray gun. Ideally, as I mentioned before, the best way to do this would be to repaint the entire panel section. We're going to try and do this differently because I just want to see if I can do it. And if I screw it up entirely, I can go ahead and just repaint it with my spray gun and do the whole entire panel instead. But I always like a challenge and I always want to try something just in case there's someone out there who doesn't have that equipment that needs to do something like this, because hopefully this is the only section on the entire car that I'm having this issue with clear. It's really going to come down to the fact if you nail your preparation when you do this type of job. Pretty much any time you paint your car, prep is, as everyone says, the most important thing. As long as you do that, I'm sure you'll be happy with the results in the end. So just take your time and I'm sure it'll work. Alright, so I got the vehicle taped off. I have my edges and everything ready to go. Working space, I've given myself some extra room just for when I go ahead and blend everything, it'll be a lot better. Give yourself the working space. Right now I've given it just a thorough wipe down with the final solvent. I'm going to get my floor wet. I have a good temperature in here, good humidity. It is cold outside, so I actually had to put my heater on. I blended a little bit of that fine edge of the sanding that I did before to the better clear coat. It stops right about here. I'm going to go ahead and spray my first coat, probably like an inch or so before, I'll stop and then I'll use that solvent blend, and then on the second coat I'll go a little further, probably overlapping that line that I did, do the solvent, and then probably a third coat, go just a little bit further and do another line as well. I have my 2K clear coat. I'm going to take off the tab there, stick it on the bottom and activate the hardener, and I'll let that sit probably for about 10-15 minutes before I go ahead and spray. I got my blend solvent ready to go as well. Get the floor wet right now, and then we'll start actually wiping down the vehicle one more time, tacking it down, and spraying on that clear.
I forgot to mention, I already practiced on that piece right there and managed to do it all right. So I was kind of concerned on how much of that blend solvent I'd be putting on there, because I really didn't want to go through that base coat and ruin that. I just followed the instructions as it tells me just to do 2 rapid just light coats on that edge. So I'm going to apply that same technique on this to the panel. Hopefully I don't screw it up. Oh, here goes nothing. I'm nervous. First coat, we're just going light.
This first coat, literally just a dust coat that we can go ahead and go a little heavier on the second coat. I'm gonna wait 5 to 7 minutes as my directions on my can tell me for the flash time. I have a pretty good temperature in here that should be pretty accurate. So I'm gonna let that sit for that time, and then I'm gonna throw on another coat.
I had like the hair dryer on it for a little bit and kind of just heated up that paint so it can harden up a little bit, because it is a little cold outside right now and I don't want to have the heater cycling the air in here and the dust and putting that onto the car. One thing that I did actually run into, I did have a little speck of dirt that did fall on the car, so what I took is a piece of tape and just rolled it backwards to the sticky end and just kind of poked into that debris, pulled it out, and then I did another layer of clear over top of it. That actually worked out much nicer than like using a pin in it or something like that. So I am super happy with how this turned out. This area in here where that thin layer of clear that burned through when I was sanding on the wet sand, that's finally repaired and looking nice. Super happy with how that turned out. There is like this smallest bit of like overspray here on the left. This isn't sticking to it, which is important. So like you can see like this misted area right here. Once I sand that down, that's fine, because right in this area right here is where that blend solvent is. So pretty much when I sand up to that, this all will disappear and go back into the regular clear coat, which will transition to that blend away solvent to the new clear coat. So it's going to look nice and clean right here. Same thing with going up here as well. It's looking pretty sharp. I actually had a lot of fun doing this little repair. It almost makes me want to just repaint the car, even though I'm pretty much done with the car paint-wise. I don't want to paint anymore this car. I do want to paint another car, but it was actually a lot of fun just doing this small repair. I'm going to let that sit, dry up, probably give it a good week before I touch it or anything like that with sanding or wet sanding. Knowing this in the future, that this area probably isn't the most thick layer of clear. Mind you, like there's barely anything left in this 2K can. I pretty much covered this entire area with one can, so I'm pretty sure that there's good enough thickness. Even in this area right here, I kind of just blasted it on about 2 coats at least. So we got 5 total on this area, so it's good. I'm sure it is. So I'll take off the backdrop sheet, let it sit for a while because we're going to move on to the exhaust. I actually got my shipment in from eBay. Oh my god, eBay. I bought like a manifold which had like a wide pipe down here. I'll grab that for you. I got this system right here that came in. I really needed this piece because this was hard to find, and a lot of junkyards, their cars are buried into the ground where that is rusted, or it's just simply cut off because they take the catalytic converter. So I actually have to fabricate that to make it work, because the piping on that end is 1.5 inches, so I got myself a 2.5 inch flex pipe, which I'm going to weld on a 2.5 inch stainless steel piece, which is going to go to the rest of the system to the mid pipe, which is also 2.5 inches. I'm not really going to go too deep into it. I just want to let you guys know what to anticipate on the next episode. As always, thank you for watching. I will see you guys later in the next episode of Garage SpeCivic.